We are nearing the end of the documentary, and I promise you, the end of the illusion of reality is only the beginning of the real. I have said so often now, we live in an old program, an illusion. So what about the new one? One that gives us back our real identity, that gives us freedom, awareness, real memories and new choices. Let's take a look. To do that, let's briefly return to the quantum world. It is important at this point to look at where thought and memory combine as a structure of energy. As we know, energy contains information, but what if all the information is old? Quantum mechanics study the behaviour of energy in the form of waves that, when observed, turn into particles, and therefore manifest into a matter reality. A field of energy potential becomes a particle. This was famously realized in the double slit experiment, the experiment that showed scientists energy and matter display characteristics of both waves and particles. The experiment looks at the probable outcome of wave function as it manifests in the world of matter. This is, once again, what Bohm called the explicate order unfolding out of the implicate order. Elonias described this as encoded thought and memory within space, light entering from the greater mind and forming program possibilities. The double slit experiment brings us back to the nature of observation. But how do we regain choice and free will in a program that has limited possibilities? In short, how do we find new choices within a finite program? And as I promised earlier, that is what this documentary is all about. Your entry into a new program through the gateway of your mind. Bohm was able to prove the predictable pathway of energy as it formed into probable pathways. In the same way, we can look at this diagram as a representation of your life and all life everywhere. The energy of potential, passing through the point of subconscious and conscious thought, then activating actuality out of a range of possibilities and probabilities. Thought and energy, magnetic alignment, program reality. To our conscious everyday experience, we feel we have choices, but in a program like this, in reality, we do not. Well, not yet. Stay with me. In order to understand something new, one has to firstly comprehend the experience of what is old. Otherwise, you cannot recognize something as new and bypass the old. You have to know and feel the difference. You have to remember the difference. This is why I am going to such great lengths to disclose the illusion of reality in deeply contemporary ways, as well as levels of deep inner awareness. We have to understand why a new program is required. Our story is like that. We have explored so much of what reality isn't, so we can start to view what it is and begin to wake up to what is real. Over time, as we continue to become aware of how the illusion of our reality was all around us, and what we truly are is inside us, we were given information about what Elonias called the new program. This is the missing piece. Putting the complexities of time and space aside for a moment, remember, the truth is simple, beyond the complexity. And simply put, those who created the original program from the real have established a new program within the structure of this space. A new program for you to connect to, for all energies, human and non-human, who are existing in the illusion of this reality. It is time to wake up and start your journey home. Waking up does not mean disappearing from this reality. Waking up means living your life as who you are and what you are in one point. All that you are existing in one point of total awareness. The inner flame. It means to align to who you really are beyond the illusion of memory. To remember you are more than who you believe you are. And when the natural cycle of life is completed and the program of one's physical life has come to its natural end, and not before, you will complete your journey home. Because of the new program, those who are real can make new choices to align to a new program. You have free will back again. You can begin your pathway home whilst you are still living within this reality as you. You can reclaim your real self. This is a powerful point I am making, and I have saved one of the most dramatic experiences Diane and I ever had until last. It was one of the most physically real experiences we ever had. And yet it is not a form of contact. It was an experience that showed Diane and I how a new program is activated to shift you into a reality filled with new opportunity and awareness. This experience is so important because it will show you how real what I am saying actually is. We both experienced this event together in a public place. It physically changed our lives and set in motion a greater range of changes that began to unfold over the next several years. Let me share what happened. I can tell you the most profound experiences are often when and where you least expect them, in the most unlikely places. In 2012, Diane and I lived in the outer eastern suburb of Berwick. We had simply finished our grocery shopping at the local supermarket and were standing at a register waiting for the customer in front of us to finish being served so we could go through the checkout. It was a busy day and all of the open registers were in use. The customer in front of us had a large amount of shopping, so we were just waiting our turn. I was holding the shopping trolley and Diane was standing in front, waiting for the chance to start to unload. As the minutes passed, I noticed Diane reach down and select a magazine from the magazine rack directly in front of me, a series of shelves built into the end of the register. I watched Diane start to leaf through the pages of the magazine, waiting for the time to pass. I even looked over the rest of the rack myself to see if there was anything I could read, but I didn't see anything of interest. I remember looking along the registers to my right, just idly waiting for time to pass. It was then I heard Diane call my name, and she said it with such alarm I turned back quickly to see her just staring at me. At first I didn't realize what was happening. Diane was still holding the magazine in her hands and just staring at me, her eyes wide. Her mouth was open with amazement. But before I could ask what was wrong, Diane spoke. "Where did I get this magazine from?" she asked. I was confused by the question, but I started to answer and pointed towards the magazine rack. I started to say, "You got it from just there," but I couldn't speak another word. The magazine rack was gone. I looked back at my wife with the same wide eyes. Where the magazine rack had been was a confectionery stand, built into the end of the register just as a magazine rack was moments ago. I was stunned. Diane turned around quickly and looked down to our left, called my name again, and pointed. 2 registers down was the magazine rack and the checkout we had just been standing at only moments before. Diane and I stood totally still and began to observe other changes. The lady who had been standing directly in front of us and the checkout attendant were both now standing at the other location, perhaps 15 feet away, 2 registers down. What's more, the attendant had a noticeably shorter hairstyle, cut around her shoulder line where before it had been quite long. In front of us, at the register we now stood at with the confectionery stand, was a completely different attendant and customer we had never seen before. At times like these, we had learned it is better to just move through the experience and observe. You will always learn more that way. Diane took a breath and walked tentatively over to the other register and put the magazine back, then returned to where I was standing. It was then our turn to go through the register, and we made our way through and out to the car. As soon as we sat down, we discussed and recorded the experience in detail. We had both experienced the same reality shift independently and verified the other's observations. It was as exciting as it was unnerving. It was tangible, so absolutely real. We had crossed a barrier to another possibility. No one else seemed to have even noticed, which means they all belonged to the relativity of the dimension we had crossed over into. This was a different parallel timeline. After arriving home, which was only a few short minutes' drive away, we discussed it again and decided to wait and watch. If we had crossed over to another reality, we may or may not see obvious signs of it. We did not have to wait long. That very next day, I had a lunch meeting with a colleague I was in early discussions with about 2 collaborative work projects. As we began to talk about the first one, everything was the same. I noticed no changes. But when I brought up the second project, my colleague had no clue who or what I was talking about. He was quite confused. He had never heard of the associate I remembered we had been talking about for weeks. Consequently, the first opportunity then failed to eventuate due to a sudden change in the client's circumstances, and I never saw my colleague again. The relativity of the previous reality separated from where we were now, and whilst we shared parts of the same relative past, our futures were altered forever. This experience showed us how physically real the power of the real is in this program, and how tangible a new program is. So very often, Diane and I would wake up, and we would be aware something had changed. We would feel it. Sometimes our dreams would verify our feelings, sometimes not. But never before had we had an experience such as this. But it was not the last one, and to this day they still occur from time to time along the pathway home. One thing I will mention, however, is this. The most powerful energy of connection is love. The new program brings new opportunities and removes the ones that would never have worked. Love is a constant. The new program is about joy and discovery, and about what will enhance your journey.